You're listening to Now I've Heard Everything, interviews from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s with voices from the past.
That's sort of an odd thing. I'm really not a very violent person. I saw Pulp Fiction and passed out cold on the floor. And I can't, I don't have a blood tolerance. And yet when I'm writing, it seems to be something entirely different.
Mystery writer Janet Evanovich today on Now I've Heard Everything. I'm Bill Thompson. Over the last 3 decades, millions of readers worldwide have enjoyed a series of novels about a fictional amateur bounty hunter from New Jersey named Stephanie Plum. Stephanie Plum is, of course, a character created by writer Janet Evanovich. Now, back in the 1980s, Evanovich was a stay-at-home mom. But as her kids began to come of the age where they would soon be leaving for college, she decided to try something new, like writing. Well, at first, she wrote romance novels, and actually got very good at it and was very successful at a romance career. But after a few years, she realized that what she liked best about writing was the action sequences in her books, and the humor. So in 1994, she wrote her first mystery, a book about Stephanie Plum called One for the Money. And it became an almost instant hit and has spawned now an entire series. There are 30 books now in the Stephanie Plum series, and she's still going strong. And here's where it all started. So here's my 1994 conversation with the just-published mystery writer Janet Evanovich.
There's some of me and Stephanie. I like to think that all the brave and wonderful parts are me, and then, those other parts, we're not sure where they came from.
Are you good with a gun?
I'm getting better. I had never handled a gun before, and when I decided to do this series, I thought that I should learn how to shoot, or at least, have a smattering of knowledge about it, because I'm not a gun person. My orientation to guns is, that guns killed Bambi's mother. That's sort of where I come from. But I did go out and I went to a gun shop and got some information on the sort of gun that I thought Stephanie would carry, because she didn't know anything about guns either, and she would need a little gun. She would want something she could put in her purse. And then I went out to the rifle range and took some shooting lessons, learned how to shoot. Never really overcame my fear of, blasting the toes off my foot, but I spent some time at it.
You never accidentally shot a portion of your dinner off the plate?
Yeah, no, I never did that. Never shot the chicken in the gumpy.
Give us just a thumbnail sketch, if you would, of where the plot takes us.
It's set in Trenton, New Jersey, and I'm a New Jersey person, so I feel real comfortable with this. Stephanie Plum is 30. She's divorced. She has a lot of brown hair. She's not bad looking. She's an attractive woman. And she's kind of down on her luck. She's the first in her family to be a college graduate, blue-collar family, blue-collar neighborhood. She has a job as a lingerie buyer. We're not talking classy lingerie. She's done what she had to keep herself in money and, have her own little apartment. And she's lost her job, and she's really at the bottom of the barrel. She's had her car repossessed. She's been selling off her furniture. She can't find another job. And finally she goes and she puts the bite on her cousin Vinny, who was a bail bondsman, for a job. And Vinny gives her, very reluctantly, gives her a job as a bounty hunter. And so this starts Stephanie's career as the big, bad bounty hunter.
I gather that it reads as though you kind of learned along the way, as Stephanie was learning along the way, what it really entails to be a bounty hunter.
That's true, and I did go out and work with some bounty hunters. I spent time with the Trenton police, and I looked up some bounty hunters, and our fugitive apprehenders, as they like to be called, and got some idea of the sort of things that they do, and tried to be as true to the profession as I could. Now, this is fiction, and there's a lot of humor in it, and I tried to put Stephanie, make this realistic. There are a lot of private investigator books with female heroines out there, and I didn't think I could compete with this because they're doing a real good job all by themselves. So what I wanted to do was get someone who didn't have a clue. My heroine is starting from the ground up. She just, she doesn't know what she's doing. She's learning her job just as I'm learning the job. And so this sort of sets it apart a little bit.
Yeah, she's kind of endearing in that way, that we're not quite sure if she's going to shoot her foot off next.
Yeah, she has her problems.
Or wind up handcuffed naked to the shower rack.
That's right, or hitting the bad guy over the head with her pocketbook instead of taking out her gun and shooting him.
These are such well-rounded characters. These are very carefully drawn. Does this come from your background in writing other kinds of books?
Well, I started out writing romance novels, and I'm not sure that the characters came from the romance novels, but certainly I had time to learn a lot of writing skills and to establish my voice as an author. I had a lot of humor in my romance novels, and there's a lot of humor in this. And this is a very fast-paced book because I think of myself as an entertainer rather than as a writer. I want people to enjoy this. This is a fast read. You can go through this book in maybe 2 to 4 hours if you really stick with it. It's a television substitute in some ways.
I've often wondered now, does that in any way kind of irritate you that you've spent months getting every word just right and shaping those paragraphs and getting that pacing and work, polishing, honing, carefully kneading to it just like you would tend to a fine garden. And here we come along, breeze through it in 4 hours and we're done. We say, all right, give me the next one.
No, that doesn't bother me, but I do get annoyed when I spend 2 hours making an apple pie and my husband and son finish it off in 10 minutes. That's
yes,
for some reason it doesn't carry over, but
yes, that's where I've been thinking of, because I cook for my family too, and you lovingly craft this thing. Maybe it's only 2 hours in a case of a pie or a lasagna or something, but boom, it's gone. They want to know when's the next one. Well, my gosh, you spend months of your life agonizing over this, missing family picnics and missing NYPD Blue and all these other things that you sacrifice. And, one weekend we've shot it and we're waiting for the next one.
Well, as long as you're waiting for the next one, that's what really counts.
That's right. I did wonder also something else. Stephanie Plum is such a melodious name. Do you choose names for your characters purposefully?
Yeah, I think names are very important. I think that they have to be memorable and they have to sort of, fall off your tongue, and they have to suit the character. So I spend a lot of time thinking about names, and because I'm writing this from New Jersey and from Trenton, New Jersey, and from my own background, there are a lot of ethnic names. It's a kind of a Polish, Hungarian, Italian thing.
Do you have to be politically correct? I mean, Italians are such an easy target for the stereotype, or do you give that some thought?
No, I'm never politically correct. I haven't been politically correct for my entire life, and I think it's too late to start now.
When Stephanie's in danger, do you feel your adrenaline rushing as well?
No, and that's sort of an odd thing. I'm really not a very violent person. I saw Pulp Fiction and passed out cold on the floor. And I can't, I don't have a blood tolerance. And yet when I'm writing, it seems to be something entirely different. And there's a scene in here which actually, kind of grabs the reader. It was at a point where I felt like I had to raise the stakes. And possibly if I was reading this and it was someone else's book, I might, be upset about it. But for some reason, when I'm writing it, no, it's a different thing. You're more involved in. There's another process going on.
Are you worried at that point about periods and semicolons and grammar, as opposed to the actual thinking, my gosh, she's in danger, she could get killed?
Yeah, no, I have an editor who worries about periods, semicolons, and all that kind of stuff. I'm worrying about things like, mechanical things like pacing and the reader's level of enjoyment, and just, propelling the story forward in a very logical fashion so that you can maintain your credibility and you still are entertaining.
How do you decide who is to be in Stephanie's life? I mean, she is, no person is an island.
Everyone's in Stephanie's life, and that's sort of what sets her apart from a lot of the hard-boiled detectives today. Stephanie has a family that really is pulling at her. Everyone really is in Stephanie's life, including the guy that she's out to get. There's some history there between the two of them, and she keeps running into him and is never able to, actually snag him and drag him back. She has a grandmother who's a few cans short of a case, and who I absolutely love, because she's fun. I mean, it isn't that she's an unpleasant character, but she has, her own life, and at her age, she's not going to let anybody tell her what to do, and she has a mother, who's trying to regulate her life by 6 o'clock pot roast. I can relate to this. It took me 40-some years before I found out, what the really determining factor was in my life, and it was pot roast at 6 o'clock. So she has all of these things, and I think that they're normal. I think that this is a very average sort of person. This is the girl next door if you happen to live in New Jersey.
Are you a weakling for pineapple upside down cake as well?
Yes. I've never met a dessert I didn't like.
Now, a practical question. Now, not that I'm not looking forward to I'm looking forward to many more Stephanie Plum novels, but for the upcoming writer who wants to get started and break into the business, do you pretty much have to come up with a series to be a success?
No, not at all. I turned to a series just because I thought it would be fun, and I had this idea. And I wanted to have some continuity with my characters. I started out as a romance writer, and I did 12 romance novels, and they were all single title, and sent my son to Dartmouth on them. So I was pretty successful, and I think it's just a matter of taste and where your talents lie. I think that writing is just a wonderful profession, and either way, works out. It's just a matter of what you feel comfortable with.
When did you first know you could write well enough to sell?
When I sold. This was 1987. My first book came out in 1987.
Wow. What did you do before that?
Well, I have a bachelor's degree from Douglas College in fine arts. I was a painter, and sort of hacked at that for a couple years, and then I got married, and then I was mom, and really liked being mom. I really enjoyed that, and was a stay-at-home mom. And then when the kids got to a certain point, instead of chocolate chip cookies, they would rather have money to go off to the movies. And so I decided it was, time for a career, and college was looming, in their future. So I searched around for something that I could do at home, something that I could still keep my finger on my kids and wouldn't have to wear pantyhose, because I couldn't see myself doing the pantyhose office thing. And that was when I started writing. And I think it took me maybe 2 or 3 years. I had a couple manuscripts that are still sitting, in my lingerie drawer that never made it. And it wasn't until I turned to the little category romance books that I had real success.
Wow, what a success story you have been. That's just for just being first published in '87, and now you've got a book that I'm assuming is about to be on the bestseller list. Is apparently about to be a movie. You've joined the big leagues.
Yeah, I've been really lucky. I feel like I hit the lottery on this one. This has really been fun.
Well, when it comes time to write the end on a book like this and tie the string around and finally send it off to the publisher, do you feel like you've said goodbye to a bunch of good friends?
Well, not in this case, because these good friends hang around, and, and I give myself a day off, and then I get up and I start, the next book in the series, so it's never really goodbye.
You couldn't kill off one of them, could you?
No.
I mean, not one of the people you like, anyway.
Well, yeah, I kill off, a few people that we really don't care about. But the main characters will always stay with the series, and they will return for book number 3 and book number 2 and book number 7. And I think that what I'm going to do is feature each of the minor characters in different books, so that I can flesh them out a little bit and have some fun with them. But all of the same characters will come back. Joe Morelli, the rogue, he will be back, and Grandma Mazer, she'll be back shooting up more turkeys. And
That's right, maybe with bow and arrow next time.
Yeah, well, one never knows.
Janet Evanovich celebrated her 80th birthday in April. The 30th book in the Stephanie Plum series was published earlier this year. Now, you can get a copy of the one that started it all, One for the Money by Janet Evanovich, by clicking on the link in our show notes or by going to our website, heardeverything.com. Now, we may earn an Amazon commission if you make a purchase. And heardeverything.com is where you'll also hear my 1991 interview with the author of another very popular series of books about a central character, in this case, medical examiner Dr. Kay Scarpetta, my 1991 conversation with Patricia Cornwell.
All of my plots are rooted usually in the commonplace and randomness. And that, of course, is what's so frightening, because we'd rather think it's a Dean Koontz or Stephen King type monster out there who's very clever and supernatural. Somehow that would make us feel a little more immune if we knew it wasn't as commonplace as the person who pumps gas for you.
And my 1992 interview with the queen of the mystery writers, Mary Higgins Clark.
I think a suspense book should be like being on the roller coaster. You know you're going to get scared. You're paying to get scared. Watch that thing chug off and you see that deep, deep drop, and you hang on and yell, and then you break and you're into the station. And you had a great time.
And of course, we post new episodes of Now I've Heard Everything here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And you can find us on every major podcast platform, including now YouTube. And thank you so much for listening. Next time on Now I've Heard Everything, don't have to tell you that September 11th was a day that shook America to its core, the violence and carnage of that day. And it was all captured in an oral history published a year later by a New York Times correspondent who covered the whole thing. So we'll revisit my 2002 interview with Dean Murphy.
And for a really representative, accurate portrayal of September 11th, it has to have the detail. I mean, I had to ask one man when he was describing this carnage in the plaza at the World Trade Center, like, what was in the pool of blood? He said body parts. That was not easy to ask, and that was not easy for him to tell me.
That's next time on Now I've Heard Everything. I'm Bill Thompson.